Hello, my name is Kit Cabello of Harlan's Media, and today we have a very special interview. We are located here at the Q4 radio station. You can listen to Harlan's Media every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time to listen to us on the radio show. And today's special guest, we have Clem Balanoff of Our Revolution, Illinois. So Clem, thank you so much for joining Harlan's Media and being here at the Q4 radio station studio.
Well, good. Thank you for having me today. Appreciate it.
So essentially, for our viewers who are going to be watching us on CanTV, Harlan's Media has interviewed you and followed Our Revolution, Illinois at 2 events. They can see that on our social media. But for them right now, let's get a good idea about, first, what is Our Revolution about? Where does its origins start?
Well, it's an outgrowth of the Bernie Sanders for President campaign. When Bernie ran after the election, on August 24th, he decided that we needed an organization to keep elected officials, politicians accountable. Our Revolution was born across the United States. And there were chapters, probably 500 chapters now across across the United States. In Illinois, we have about 18 or 20 of them. And what it is to keep elected officials accountable and to keep Bernie's agenda of hope and opportunity alive. And that it means things like continuing the fight for 15, although as you and I have talked about, you know, I think we should be fighting for like 18 or 19 because we've been fighting for 15 for like 4 years, and the amount of money the value of that continues to go down. I mean, I think we should have 15 an hour like right now with the cost of living escalator. To continue the fight for free college tuition at state colleges and public universities and colleges, to fight for Medicare for all, and to make sure that actually happens in this country. So it's an ongoing organization, and like in Illinois, as I said, we have about 18, 20 chapters, and it's to be able to not only do supporting issues, but also for electoral politics, to be able to support candidates who support a progressive agenda. But not only support it, because we hear lip service from a lot of people, but who will go and actually go to whether it's the state legislature, whether it's the city council in Chicago, whether it's the Cook County board, and really go there to fight and to make a difference.
Right, and it's a very important note to really talk about, specifically about how getting the community involved. Now, your chapter, Our Revolution, Illinois, you guys are established here in our state. Essentially, what is your outreach towards the people who live in the state of Illinois? What are your goals, and what has been your impact in regards to building connections with the people who live in this state?
Well, one of the things, as you were at the forum that we had a couple of weeks ago, and there's probably, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 people at the thing. We packed the Chicago Teachers Union Hall. As sometimes said, not only were they the whole big hall, but the hallways and the overflow rooms were all packed, and that's very true. Right. Because but what we're doing is we're reaching out to different, like Bernie groups and supporters across the state. We have probably the largest email list, and when we become officially certified as the Illinois organization, which should be in the next week or 2, 3, we will have access to about 300,000 emails.
So that's 300,000 people who live in the state of Illinois.
Absolutely. And those are people that either knocked on a door for Bernie Sanders, made a phone call for Bernie Sanders, gave $1 to Bernie Sanders, came to a rally, but somehow the campaign touched them. And they did something affirmative to be part of that database. And we think that that's a very powerful database to have, and to be able to work across the state of Illinois, because we want, we want to continue the kind of Bernie revolution. And I think that's where our strength comes from. But when we talk about specific issues, not only do we engage, and we work very hard to engage Bernie organizations, like Our Revolution organizations in the state of Illinois, but also to reach out to other progressive organizations, as with the forum that we had, or reach out to community organizations when it becomes to one of the fights that we're very actively involved in, and that's the one around the regressive property tax assessment system in the state of Illinois.
So let's actually focus in on that, because Harlan's Media covered the one forum that you held at the Chicago Teachers Union Center, and also we were there at the Northwest Side Town Hall Center, where Representative Bill Gazzard was part of a panel, as well as another member of Our Revolution, as well as a few other groups. They're discussing the impact of gentrification, large real estate developers moving into low-income communities, and at the same time, as this happens, people are being displaced, rent is going up, housing prices are going up. So for our viewers, so that we have a better idea of what's really happening here in Cook County specifically, what is the impact of these large real estate developers coming in and gentrification, and Cook County's involvement?
Well, I think, first of all, long-term residents are being pushed out.
Right.
And part of the reason that they're being pushed out is because of the property tax system that we have in Cook County. And it's administrated by a person by the name of a county assessor named Joe Barrios. And it is a very regressive system. What that means is that poor homeowners and black and minority homeowners are being overassessed. They're paying a larger percentage of property taxes in relation to the value of their home than wealthier property owners. Many studies have been done. In 2011, the Lincoln Institute study, which is it's the umbrella, it's the organization, the industry organization for property tax assessors. And they said that Cook County was one of the most regressive. The University of Illinois, the University of Chicago, the UIC, and Cook County, they've done studies, and they found that the system is in fact regressive. The MacArthur Foundation, they said that they funded a study and to look at a new model, and they came up with a new model that would make the system fairer.
Right.
And Joe Barrios even went out there and says, God, we have a great new system, we're going to implement this, it's going to make the system fair. We want to get rid of the inequities in the system. And then, after doing that in 2015, didn't tell anybody, he just never implemented the system. And it just gets worse. People appeal their property taxes, and the system is not fair, it is not transparent, and it's not accurate. And when I say it's not transparent, he won't even tell you the model that he uses. You cannot find out, you cannot FOIA and find out how they arrive at the valuation of your home. And they say, well, a lot of times we do what they call hand checks. Well, what a hand check is I would suggest to you, is subjectivity. And, we, just yesterday at the county board, when he was talking about his budget, and he always talks about this. He says, well, the system is doing great. Lots of people appeal their property taxes. In 2015, I think the number in Cook County was 166,000 in New York, which is bigger than Cook County in terms of number of parcels. It was only 53,000. And in San Francisco it was 5,000. Property tax appeals are supposed to be used for outliers, when there's a mistake, not just as a matter-of-fact course of doing business. And yet, when he was talking about his budget, he said, we had 366,000 appeals in 2016 out of 1.7 million parcels. He said, this year, 2017, we expect it to be 250,000. He said, but in 2018, it's going to be 380,000. And every time somebody appeals their assessment and gets a reduction, and 80% of the people, first of all, when you look at those numbers, many people appeal every single year. And they get a reduction and a reduction and a reduction, even when their property values are going up.
So in regards to this crisis that's being implemented on the low-income communities here in Chicago, what has been our Revolution's outreach towards the Cook County officials and city officials here in Chicago in regards to helping out the people who are struggling?
Right.
Because let's face it, in Pilsen, we've done some numerous coverage there to where 10,000 people have been displaced.
Right.
In South Austin, there's large real estate developers moving in, and the same thing's happening to other low-income minority communities. Right. So what has been our Revolution, Illinois specifically, what has been your communication to the elected officials of Cook County as well as the city officials?
Well, we have reached out to every city alderman and all county commissioners and asked them to join us in this thing, in our fight to make the system less regressive, because that would lead to less gentrification. Because people could afford to stay in their homes. One of the things is they are being pushed out. And then because when property taxes go up, renters also get pushed out. Because they're the ones, if you're renting a place, you can be sure the landlord's passed along every increase, whether it's in your water bill, whether it's in your property taxes, whether it's in the new garbage collection tax of nickel and dime, one of the nickel and dime taxes of Rahm Emanuel, or whatever. So what we've done is we've put together a coalition of about, I think, 15, 20 community organizations, including like in Pilsen Alliance, Brighton Park Neighbors, this Southwest Organizing Committee, I think it is, all that's in that general area, on the north side, the Northwest Housing Coalition, and a variety of others across the city, and some of them reach across county lines, to collectively make the fight to change the system. And because they know it's unfair. Joe Barrios knows it's wrong. Joe Barrios, the Chicago Sun-Times, and the Chicago Tribune, and many others have said it is institutionally racist. And in fact it is, and it has to change. And we are not going to be happy until it does change. And this whole idea now that, you know, when you ask about what have they done, the city of Chicago, the council, the alderman, a couple of them said, hey, you know, we ought to have a public hearing on this. That was 3 months ago.
Nothing but silence.
Nothing but silence. You know, I mean, as you and I have talked about it in the past, when Laquan McDonald, when the video became public, and Will Calloway is a young guy, a young African-American from the south side of Chicago, was the one that fought for 13 months to make it public. When it happened, there was nothing but outrage. Every alderman says, God, I'd have only known this if I'd have fought it, you know, this is wrong, and we have to make them public right away, and all these other things, right? The mayor should have told us this, we should have known. And they all claimed that they didn't know anything about it, you know? They were like ostriches. Their heads were in the sand, they were, you know, they were gonna fight from now on. It was a tempest in a teapot. A couple of days, within a week, all the media was watching. They said, oh God, maybe all of a sudden the council's going to wake up and become more than the rubber stamp that it's been. And yet, a week later, silence. It doesn't, you know, and it's the same thing with this. They wanted to talk about it, said, hey, we're going to have these hearings, reduce a hearing even, and then nothing at all. You know, they have a responsibility, and that's to represent the people that they're elected to represent. And you know, like one of the things that we're going to focus on in our revolution is the 2019 aldermanic elections. I mean, we've probably already had contact with, I mean, actually direct contact with 30 people that want to run for alderman. Sometimes multiple people in one ward, you know, who are just dying to make a change. You know, whether it's because of Laquan McDonald and whether it's because of the Barbara Bird Bennett, superintendent of schools, who's now in jail, Rahm's pick. Whether it's the $1.4 billion in taxes that Rahm has raised over the last 3 years, and as was pointed out, at a cost of about $1,700 per family. People don't even, you know, people don't even get pay raises of $1,700 a year. You know, they're not even making, they're falling further and further behind.
Well, then let's address another issue that our revolution and our revolution in Illinois is going to have to deal with. So this will be a two-part question.
Sure.
Of course, the impact of Bernie Sanders during the 2016 election cycle has motivated a lot of people to get actively involved and talk about issues that for a long time the Democratic Party would never address. And now currently, the Democratic Party has removed a lot of pro-Bernie Sanders supporters from the establishment, and it's led to many people questioning whether or not the Democratic Party is something that people can work with, specifically reforming it. Now, here in Illinois specifically, what has our revolution in Illinois' interaction been with the Democratic Party? Because already you mentioned that, you know, Cook County Clerk, Commissioner of the Assessor, Joe Barrios, is basically somebody who you've been at odds with.
Oh yeah, well look, he's also head of the Democratic Party in Cook County.
Right.
And very honestly, Joe Barrios has to go for a few reasons. Certainly the property tax assessment system, which is institutionally racist and regressive, the only way to correct that problem, the only way, is to change the assessor and get rid of Joe Barrios. That is something that, you know, we're looking at very closely, and I expect that we'll be making an endorsement in that race and be able to put a lot of weight behind the endorsement, whether, you know, put people on the streets, raise some money, and just, you know, just get rid of the cancer. But it's also head of the Democratic Party. And by the Democratic Party, every one of them, not everyone, the vast majority of the Democratic committeemen are supporting Joe Barrios' re-election. Instead of representing the interests of the people that they've been elected to represent. And I'll tell you what, if they don't, if they continue down this path, some of them will not get reelected. I'm not saying we can beat them all, that's not realistic. But certainly, things have to change. There has to be more accountability. That's one of the reasons that our revolution initially came into being. Because it came into being before Donald Trump was elected president. Because we knew that no matter who was elected the next president, whether it was Hillary or Trump, we're going to have to keep their feet to the fire, and we have to keep them accountable. And push the Democratic Party to start really representing working men and women, poor people, minorities, our children.
Well then, a real quick follow-up. Can the Democratic Party be effectively reformed? Because there's still people who are upset with how the primaries in 2016 turned out. And at the same time, right now, 40% of Americans identify themselves as independents, walking away from the two-party political establishment system. So what will be your outreach towards many people who are critical of both Republicans, Democrats, and feel that perhaps maybe we need to have a multi-party system so that we can have real policy issues debated and discussed, and not controlled by two parties that are
well,
bought by Wall Street.
Yeah, well, we are not, you know, tied to or an affiliate of the Democratic Party. And certainly, the neoliberal, you know, Wall Street type Democrats don't have much appeal, if any, to people that have been part of our revolution.
Right.
And that's why, as I've told many Democratic groups, and you should know, I got the Democratic County Chairman's Party Builder Award this year. And when I got the award, I made it very clear. If the Democratic Party doesn't change, it's going to become irrelevant. There's not very many people, I can't remember the last person who came to me and says, Clem, where do I sign up? How do I become a member of the Democratic Party? But I do see people saying, hey, you know what? I want to be part of our revolution. Or a number of other decent progressive organizations, you know, around the city, the county, and the state. Right. And you know, it's important. I mean, as I tell people, I'd love them all to get involved with our revolution. But there are certainly many other good organizations and groups out there. Get involved with something and start, you know, because that's collectively we have a lot of power. Now, sometimes we have to figure out how to get along a little bit better, you know, and that's a job, and it's, you know, and we all work. I mean, I know we certainly work on it. When the forum's a good example. We put together the gubernatorial, probably 50 plus different progressive organizations across the state of Illinois. Right. And not only do we have the people there, but it was live streamed, as you know, around the state of Illinois, and there was probably 30 or 40 that we know of. That actually, there were a little house party, a party in the Democratic headquarters, in a union hall, and a variety of other places. Because we thought, we understand the importance of, you know, there aren't enough of us unless we fight together. Then there's more than enough of us. Right. And that's why we can, you know, we can really be a power. And we look at it, if candidates that are worth supporting, I think that's where, you know, we will be supportive of them. And that doesn't mean that we'll support everybody that's a good candidate, because we have to also understand, at this point in time, our own bandwidth. What I mean by that is we want to be able to get involved in a few races and be able to make a noticeable difference. Right. You know, instead of saying, and I would love to say we get to the day where we can endorse somebody in every race, but we're not quite there yet.
Now, you're speaking of races right now and elections, and of course, our Revolution Illinois hosted the Democratic gubernatorial debate at the Chicago Teachers Union Center. So essentially, all midterms so far, the data shows that it's always been a low voter turnout. Now, of course, the aftermath of the 2016 general election between Trump and Clinton, more people want to get involved, they want to talk about issues, and they want to really reform the system. And what's going to require is outreach. So for that 2018 election cycle, of course, we're still in the primary session between the Democratic gubernatorial candidates. But what will be your impact in regards to getting people to walk out to vote and register to vote?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I used to be the director of elections for Cook County. Registration has become less of an issue, actually, because it's becoming easier and easier and easier to register. Turnout is what's important. And I think it's important that we nominate people in the primary that are going to excite people, they're going to offer them hope, that are supportive of things that on Bernie's agenda. As I said, whether it's $15 an hour, where they're saying, hey, no more of these bad trade deals like TPP, whether it's free college tuition, whether it's Medicare for all, whether it's income inequality, whether it's saying, hey, we ought to have the rich start paying their fair share. I mean, Amazon's a really good example of that. You know, we're falling over, the county, the city, and the state are falling over themselves to figure out how to give them as much as they can give them. Like they said, well, we're giving them a little over $2 billion. That's what the package is supposed to be worth. But that's the opening ante. You know, we're willing to go much higher. Well, you know, why don't we decide that we're going to do something, you know, dramatic, and say, you know what, all the tax incentives that we give will come from an increase in the taxes for the top 2% or 3% of all income earners in Illinois. They're the ones that in the end usually benefit. Why don't we do something like that? Let's start, you know, like decreasing the gap between those that have and those that don't have. So, and you know, I think there's things that can be done, and issues that we can be, you know, supportive of and to push candidates on. I mean, even at the forum, I think that candidates in many respects, knowing it was the Progressive Forum, went further than they had in the past. And I think that's, you know, that's real important, because they understand the, you know, like the importance of groups like our Revolution.
So then, real quick.
Yep.
Right now, it's a race between 5 candidates that are Daniel Biss, Teal Hartman, Bob Daver, Chris Kennedy, and J.B. Pritzker.
Yep.
What will be the necessary steps to really get people to be excited to vote? for the candidates, because if it's going to be Pritzker or Kennedy, they'll be going to get the runner, and it'll be the most expensive election in Illinois state history.
It'll probably be the most expensive governor's race in the history of the United States, actually.
Right.
I mean, J.B. Pritzker's ready for $28 million. I think Bruce Rauner has $71 million right now. Obscene amounts of money. So I think we also have to change what it takes to get elected, because that'll instill confidence in people that that everything isn't for sale. Because when most things happen in government, you can follow the money and the pattern. In the case of the Joe Barrios, he's raised $5 million, that's controlled by 3 of his political committees. And over half of them come from people, tax lawyers and tax appeals people, who do business directly with his office and depend on him to be there. And you can say there's no connection, but in one case, 90-some% of people that they had appealed for were getting reductions. And we've been talking about residential. The commercial industry, like property tax assessment is even worse. But there's actually going to be my understanding is that the Tribune is going to be doing a follow-up story, and they're going to be talking about property tax reductions in the commercial end, and that's just extremely egregious. That just makes, it pales almost in comparison, what the system with the residential, compared to what's happening in the commercial end.
No.
Donald Trump's tower over there, I forgot what it was, but they got a huge tax break because they said, well, it's not quite, it's not, space isn't being used yet. No, and it doesn't instill confidence in people when they see these type of things happening. And that's why people don't vote. Because they think, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you elect. Things aren't going to change. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes they don't. Because it's because of a system that's broken. And that's, in part, as I said, because of, you have to be always concerned of how you're going to raise the money to be able to get through your next election. That's why, we're supportive of the small donor match bill of Daniel Biss in the state, of John Arena in the city of Chicago, and Chuy Garcia in the county. We're supportive of all 3 of those. And because we know that if we can do that, change what it takes to get elected, we can change the result of of the elections that happen.
So really trying to motivate people to get actively involved, and also at the same time have candidates that are going to fight for issues that they care about.
Well, I think it's like I think we oftentimes we know the issues, and it's just a matter of making sure that they do a little bit more than pay lip service to them. $15 an hour. As I said, it probably should be $19, $17, $18, $19 an hour, because we've been fighting for it for so many years. Right. But it's one thing to put a bill on the governor's desk when their governor's a Republican, and we know he will not sign it. But just 3 years ago, when we were fighting for 15, okay? This fight has not just been the last year and a half or anything like this. This has been something that's been going on since, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I was told it was either 2012 or 2013, the Fight for 15 campaign actually began. I remember that we had a Democratic governor. Not only have a Democratic governor, we had a supermajority in both the House and the Senate in Illinois, but we didn't put the bill on his desk. It's much different when you have the ability to actually pass something. In this country, one of the things that we have to do, I think it's 27 states have the governor, I hope this is right, the governor, the state house, and the state senate under the control of the Republicans. Okay? It's the 2018 elections are real important because redistricting happens in 2020, and we have to change that, and we can do those things. That's what's the important thing about our revolution nationally. That's one of the things that we are looking at and they are working on.
All right. So essentially, for our viewers who are going to be watching this on CanTV, where can they learn more about our revolution, and more specifically, really, how can they get actively involved? Because when we cover groups like yours, they need to remain to be motivated and to remain be actively involved. So the process, where can they find you guys on social media, and also what are the necessary steps to really keep people from being demotivated from being involved in politics?
Well, I certainly hope that they would like to get involved with Our Revolution Illinois, and they can do that in a few ways. The national Our Revolution site is ourrevolution.com, and they can go look at and sign up for one of the groups in the state of Illinois. Our Revolution Illinois, we have our own website. It is in the embryonic stages. I don't want to tell anybody stories. It's going to get more robust. We're going to put more issues up, but it's really, it's not great yet, but it's going to get much better in the next few weeks. But that is Our Revolution Illinois, or I'm sorry, OurRevolutionIL.com. And tell them to sign up, tell them, send us a message. We want to get them involved, because I think we're talking about the issues that are important to working men and women, to the African American and Latino communities. And we have a new grouping within it's starting. It's going to be a women's grouping, and like that they said we should have our own part of it, be part of it. I said, that's great, then let's do it, And so it's like we're kind of expanding the issues specifically that we're working on, and issues that are important to people that across the city of Chicago, across the county, and across the state of Illinois, and this country.
One thing I've always asked a lot of people is, what do you want to say to people who are perhaps sitting on the couch choosing not to get involved? Well, but let's ask you this question specifically. What keeps you motivated to fight the fight and be part of Our Revolution Illinois? Well, what keeps you going forward to the next day and the day after?
Well, it's interesting because I grew up in an activist family. Right. When I was 10 years old, I marched with Dr. King with my dad. Didn't know why we were marching in Washington, D.C., but I did that. My family just happens to be one that helped build the Steelworkers Union, and I've been an activist all my life. When I retired actually from the county in 2013. And as everybody says, boy, Clem, it's like you retired. And he says, that's one thing you're failing at, is retirement, because I can't seem to get out of this stuff. Well, it's because I want to make a better world not only for myself, but for my children and my children's children, and for everybody's children. Because, I look at the society that we've created, in the wealthiest country in the world, and I'm disappointed. And I think that, it is through getting actively involved. People have to understand, change doesn't happen because you want it. It doesn't happen because it's right. It happens because you fight and you win. Talking about the unions, the 8-hour day, health insurance, pensions. Those weren't things that the bosses just gave you because they were good and it was the nice thing to do. They did it because people fought.
And so when you fight, you win.
Well, you don't win all the time, right. But I'll tell you what, I've been in lots of fights in and I'm glad I still have some hair. I've been in lots of fights in my life, lots of scars up there. In fights, I never regret any one that I've been in. Even the ones when we didn't win. The fights I regret are the ones that we didn't get in and we should have been in.
Well, that's a good note to end it on. So Clem, thank you so much for joining Heartlands Media.
Absolutely.
And to all our people who are watching this, who are sharing this, watching this on CanTV, you can listen to Heartlands Media again on Q4 Radio every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can see some of our live stream works on our Facebook page. You can also see some of our important high-definition video content on our YouTube page. Please follow us on Twitter and also check us out on Instagram. We'll also have a Spreaker account where you can listen to our radio show if you don't want to listen to us on YouTube or Facebook. So essentially, the reason why Heartlands Media exists is because of people who share our content, watch us, listen to us. Because as an independent media network, we cover stories that corporate media will not cover. And that's the main purpose of these interviews that we see here, such as with Our Revolution Illinois. So I think as a final note, we have this whole mini-series that's happening right now. So be sure to check it out. Check out all of our content. We have a whole archive of videos to where you can see activist groups similar to Our Revolution Illinois, or who are trying to fight the good fight to bring in political reform, social reform, because that's the whole purpose of this network. It's to cover stories that the corporate media establishment will not cover, because if it doesn't get out there that there are issues that are impacting so many communities, then it is our social responsibility as a media network to do that job. So to all our listeners, viewers, subscribers who watch us on all our social media platforms, peace to everyone. Let's all do what we can to build a better future.
You're watching Heartlands Media.